Hello, it's Tim LeBon again, uh, and welcome to Stoic Life Coaching and a 5-minute book review of Donald Robertson's Think Like a Roman Emperor. So, I'm only going to give a 5-minute review, and basically, the 1-minute version of that would start with the words, buy it, because I'm only going to review books that I recommend, and I hope the rest of the review will just tell you a little bit more about why I recommend it. So Donald Robertson has written a number of books, and they're all good. And there are also a number of other good books about Stoicism, written by people like Massimo Pigliucci and John Sellers and Bill Irvin, to name but a few. But the book that I've been recommending to my coaching and therapy clients, and indeed friends who are interested in Stoicism, the book I've been recommending recently is How to Think Like a Roman Emperor by Donald Robertson. Now, why, you might say, am I recommending it? Well, we'll just have a really quick look at the contents, just to get a flavour of the type of book it is. So we're going to skip the introduction and the last chapter for a second, and look at the other chapters very briefly. And what you'll see is that it's structured around the life of Marcus Aurelius, the last of the good Roman emperors. And so if you read it, you're kind of reading a narrative, you're reading a story. And it's a story of a great man who you would want as a role model. And as you read it, you get to see that Marcus faced a number of problems. Look, here we go, chapter 3, Contemplating the Sage. As a young man, Marcus frequently became very angry. And so we hear about the Stoic techniques or tools or ideas that he used to overcome the very sort of problem that you or I might have. Because although Marcus Aurelius was, of course, the most powerful person in the world at the time, he was still very much a human being who struggled like the rest of us. And so what Marcus can do is to give us some sage advice. And what Donald Robertson does very successfully, I think, in this book, is to weave between Marcus's life and Stoic techniques. So we'll see, for instance, before we get to Death and the View from Above, which, as I say, is a bit different, we'll see we have chapters on, well, going back a bit, Dead Emperor. That is how Marcus wasn't expecting to be emperor, and so he was faced with a huge challenge at a young age. How could he cope with that? Most truthful child in Rome, and that describes Marcus's rejection, in a way, of the teachers who were just trying him to be a good speaker, in favour of philosophers who were the seekers of wisdom and truth. The choice of Hercules and how to conquer desire is the choice between pleasure and leading a good life, and how you might need to have a different kind of response to all the temptations that you might have. Grasping the nettle is to do with pain. So someone asked me today, can you think of an ancient Stoic who had to deal with chronic health conditions? Well, Marcus was one, and in chapter 5 you'll read about that. So the middle chapters, the meat of the book, if you like, is weaving Marcus's life and Stoic and indeed CBT techniques. So Donald Robertson is a CBT therapist. In his other books he describes techniques like cognitive distancing, like contemplating adversities and how to overcome them, like having a sage on your shoulder to advise you, and evening meditations, and all the kind of techniques that Donald writes about in his other books are presented as ones that either Marcus wrote about himself, or ones that, if he knew the kind of things that we know in the 21st century, he would have incorporated probably into his Stoicism. Okay, so there's lots of good practical tips. So that's the second reason I recommend it. The first reason is because it's a good story. The second reason is there's lots of good practical tips. And I've been promising you that I would look at the first and last chapters because they're a bit different. So, look, this is Donald writing. When I was 13, my father died. I was unprepared for his death. I coped with it badly. So it's a very personal statement that you don't get in Donald's other books about how he himself was helped by Stoicism. And there are some parallels that Donald sees between himself and Marcus Aurelius there. And then when we come on to the last chapter, Death and the View from Above, this is a very different style of chapter. It's kind of imagining Marcus contemplating his own death and actually using the view from above to deal with it in a very calm way, a very positive way, a very wise way, we might say. So that is my 5-minute review of Think Like a Roman Emperor, Stoic philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. If you're interested in Stoicism, if you want a good read, if you want practical techniques, then buy it. No book is perfect, and if I had one quibble, I would say that it is also how to think like a modern Stoic as much as how to think like Marcus. There are certain bits of Marcus's meditations that aren't particularly highlighted in this book, perhaps some of the more spiritual ideas or the more metaphysical ideas. They are there in Donald's presentation, but I think if you read the meditations, you would get a slightly different balance of the techniques. That might well be in this book's favour. If you're a kind of modern Stoic who wants evidence-based techniques that are in line with Stoicism, then this is probably even more helpful than the original meditations, and that is high praise indeed. Now, how do you buy it? Because you've got you can buy the hardback, you can buy it on Kindle. You can get it on Audible. Actually, I've got all three. If you get it on Audible, you'll hear it, the dulcet tones of Donald Robertson reading it in his inimitable Scottish accent. So he reads it very well as well. So I recommend you get hold of it. And so I hope this book review has been helpful. As I say, there will be more book reviews on the Stoic Life Coaching YouTube channel, along with other content I hope is useful. My name's Tim LeBon. I'm a UKCP registered therapist, a BABCP accredited CBT therapist, and a Stoic Life coach, offering consultations by Zoom these days. If you want to contact me, there's my email address, a couple of my books that I've written there as well, and my website. So I hope this is useful, and I will see you later. Bye for now.